We will turn to Dr. Robson. I invite you to make your opening statement of up to 5 minutes. I'm sure it'll go much more smoothly today.
Well, that wouldn't be a hard bar to clear, but I thank you very much for inviting me and indeed for inviting me back to present what I think is perhaps a different perspective than that of the previous witness, because you're gathered here to talk about pondering the impact of the criteria for awarding federal funding on research excellence in Canada. And I'm here to urge you, rather than refining the criteria, to get rid of them and also all the funding involved. And I say this for two reasons. The first being that you, as members of Parliament, are the critical link between citizens and the whole political process. In the massive apparatus of government, you are the only people that we choose. And you have core duties that you must attend to that at the moment, not to be uncivil, are being carried out very badly. You need to be peering into the public accounts, not the test tubes. The second point, and those of you who were here for the first try will know this, I come from an academic family. Both my parents are professors, my uncle, two cousins. My grandfather was not just a professor, he was an expert on the evolution of Parliament. My quotation of the day online today, in fact, is from him. But our universities are in a mess today, and one of the primary reasons why is that they've become creatures of the state. Now, of course, it may be occurring to some of you that education is in fact constitutionally provincial, and you're right. Nevertheless, the federal government somehow seems to spend something on the order of $15 billion a year on post-secondary education, and I don't think that it's doing much good. But more to the point, when I speak of your core duties, the first one I want to mention is the national finances. Solvency. It is a critical thing, and yet we are facing massive deficits, and we just got this weird Christmas tax break that's apparently going to save each of us $4.51 and cost firms millions to administer. So I urge you to put aside genetic codes and look at the tax code. And even responsibilities defense of the realm. And I'm just drawing here on very recent news stories. Canada is defenseless in the Arctic. We have no assets there worthy of the name. And in fact, we are defenseless generally in an increasingly dangerous world. So again, I tell you to forget about antimatter and get us some ammunition and somebody capable of firing it. And other critical federal responsibilities, infrastructure, but a news story revealed that Via Rail is getting subsidies exceeding $1,000 a passenger, but it can't make the trains run on time. And then some minister was promising finally a human right to clean drinking water for First Nations and long-term sustainable funding for generations. What we really have is boil water advisories for generations. So again, I say, forget heavy water and fix the tap water. And then there was the story about the federal court maybe having to curtail hearings because they have such a funding shortfall. Nothing is more fundamental to peace, order, and good government than justice, except defense. But justice is collapsing as well in this country. You could wait almost a year just to get a hearing on a traffic ticket. I assure you that's true. And this is happening even though federal spending has ballooned from under $300 billion a decade ago to over $500 billion today. The national debt is over $1 trillion, and the federal public service is up a baffling 40%. So you as MPs need to make this stuff stop. Never mind inventing a Canadian bilingual chatbot. And I do think there's a certain irony in the fact that the hearings fell apart last time because we couldn't actually manage translation. Is there anything that the federal government ought to be more on top of than that? So, I would say more about the universities, but time is short. Bruce Party and Heather Exner-Pirro both spoke about that. So I want to come back to this point that leave education to the provinces. It's bad enough with them in charge. And if you cut the spending, I'm talking about that $15 billion, to end on a slightly more cheerful note, take about $1 billion of it and buy yourself some staff. I worked on the Hill almost 30 years ago, and I discovered that the U.S. Congressional House of Representatives Budget Committee alone had about 100 staff. Representatives have close to 20. Senators have dozens. And a lot of them are doing admin or constituency work, but they've got, 5 or 10 full-time policy people to keep them on top of what's happening. You don't have, you're looking at 5 staff total. And I'll tell you what, cabinet. The party leaders and the bureaucracy do not want MPs on top of issues because it makes you less docile. They want to distract you, and this is a distraction. Laser beams, that's for cats to chase. We citizens need legislators who are focused on fundamentals, not cold fusion. Because right now, in the central
Thank you.
responsibilities of government,
That's our time. I'm going to
nobody's
stop
minding
you
the
there.
score, and it shows.